Hi guys, from here in Italy, lockdown live. This is vlog number 18 or 19. Sorry, there was a slight delay today because YouTube has new regulations for what's available for kids and what's available for adults. So I had to change all my settings that I normally use on my stream. So anyway, here I am, and I would love it if you go down to the comments and just leave me a little message, say hi, say where you're from so that I can respond to you guys. I hope you can hear me well enough, and really looking forward to our chat today. Today we're going to talk about a couple of things that follows on my previous live stream that I did about a week ago, I think just a little more than a week ago, or maybe it was less. I'd love you to go afterwards perhaps and catch up on last live stream, and then you'll have an idea of what we're talking about today. So, okay. So where am I? I'm just between Milan and Como in the north, in Lombardia, the hardest hit of the lockdown areas. And as of 3 days ago, we came out of normal lockdown that we'd been in for 2 months. What does that mean? That means that obviously we can't do what we like, but we could actually go out for a walk with our loved ones, which we weren't allowed to do before. We could go shopping with a mask and gloves, obviously, and queue up. There aren't many queues in Italy, as I've covered in previous videos. Certainly when I go shopping, it's not a major deal to get into the supermarket. So all of that. And then a couple of days ago, I think on the 4th of May, if I'm not wrong, we went into a different kind of lockdown situation, in that it got extended slightly, that we could go for a walk with our families, and with permission we could go within our province to meet with family with permission, which meant we had to have an authorization. But how have I felt during lockdown? And you guys can leave me questions and I'll cover them as they come up. As I mentioned in my video before, I haven't really suffered much during lockdown. There's been certain things that obviously would have loved to do. I would have loved to go and visit friends, which I haven't been able to do. But, it's helped to be online and chat with them. I can, have YouTube calls with my family. My immediate family, my children, obviously. And so that's been quite nice. Thank goodness for the technology to be able to do that. For the rest, I love being in my garden. My roses are all blooming now. This is a beautiful rose called Papamela, a very big red rose. It opens really red and big. It's a sort of dark red with a absolutely beautiful perfume, and within the next few updates you'll see my studios was covered in roses because I pick them for the house and then they make more. So I haven't struggled that much because I have my garden space and it's taken up quite a lot of my time, and it's an absolute pleasure, and it has really fed my soul. But I covered this before in my other updates. What I really want to cover today is this debate of, should we have ever been in lockdown? Because some people are saying it was a complete waste of time, because transmission rates would have probably been the same had we not been in lockdown. I'm not a scientist, so I'm going to give you my viewpoint, and then we'll see how you feel about that. Hopefully you'll leave me some questions or your opinions about this. But what prompted this discussion was that there had been these articles on Facebook, on the print media, on TV, updates that the Naviglia in Milan, which is, where all the canals are and has a lot of bars and restaurants, it's very lively at night, and many tourists who come to Milan go there during Fashion Week or going the various different events that Milan hosts during the year. That's a hot spot. So that's where people go to have dinner afterwards, and there's lots to see and do there. And so it got flooded in the last few days, and I should imagine this weekend will be, right now as we speak, people will be there having an aperitivo, which is the Italian way to end the day, and I'm quite sure they're out as we speak right now, as it's Friday evening. And, should these people have done it? Should they have kept more social distance? Should they have kept the two? I'm just monitoring the messages that are coming through. Should they have kept to the 2 meter distance, and were they wearing masks? And there was a whole lot of debacle, and it was quite reactionary. People were really angry about it, and people jumped on Facebook and said, oh my God, why don't these people understand, that this is just going to mean that, transmission and infection rates are going to jump again. And of course, the government had to react. So they came in and said, well, we're going to put you straight back into lockdown if this is how you're going to behave when we let you out. So there was that. And it was quite strong words from them. I don't know. Looking at the English situation, England, Britain, UK, some of whom have, strictly kept to lockdown rules, they haven't had a very uniform rule as they have in Italy, whereas if you go out of your door, you have to have a mask on. I got actually sent a really gorgeous mask, and I will certainly show you in the next video that I upload, a lovely cloth mask that was made for me so kindly with roses on it. So that was really sweet, but I left it downstairs, so I don't really want to interrupt the video to go prancing off downstairs when I'm on live. But certainly I will show you on the next update. It's a lovely cloth mask that I can just wash, beautifully made, and it certainly helps because I've just been using paper masks that I got right in the beginning and just spraying them with some alcohol and drying them off on the radiator. So when I use them, whatever may have been deposited on there gets sanitized. But anyway, I now have a proper mask that I can wash and keep using because, as I say, in Italy, we have this absolute rule that if you go out of your house, you have to have a mask. But England never had this blanket rule for everybody. Everyone just kind of did their own thing. Was that a good thing? Was that a bad thing? What do you guys think? I mean, should everybody have been given the same information that they should have been wearing masks? I think that's an important thing to know. Let me know if you're leaving me a message there, if you just want to say hi, and then I can respond to your questions. Hopefully I can read them from here. So England didn't have this blanket rule that one had to wear masks when they were going out, and so people just did what they kind of wanted. Some people wore masks, some people didn't. Some people were what they call crucial workers, needed people who work in the NHS, in the hospital services, people who do refuse collection. There's a whole bunch of things people do that are outside of nursing and the medical field that are considered essential services, including transport people who do public transport, the people who work the trains, the people who drive the trains. All of those people have continued to have to go to work, get on a train, go in their cars, whatever. So they obviously had made up their own minds as to whether they would wear a mask or not wear a mask, and whether it was good or bad, and what risks they would take or not take. So there was all of that. And so there's been a big debate in UK over the last few weeks because as we speak, and those of you who've been following me all the way along, we started with about, I think, 8,000 deaths in Italy and followed up to today. So there were a lot more than that. So it's been quite a journey, and in moments very sad and really, really, really hard to find a positive spin, but somehow we did. But England has now gone over 30,000 dead. That's a huge amount, considering in the beginning they believed that they would have learned from the Italian situation, and they had time to get respirators and their protective gear all lined up. Well, it just took seemingly forever to get all of that lined up and people were left in, really difficult conditions where they couldn't visit their parents who may have been in an old age home and they wanted to visit them. So in the beginning, there was a lot of stuff that just wasn't known, and everybody just had to make up their own rules. And of course, the Prime Minister Boris came under great scrutiny and criticism for that, and not only him, but his whole cabinet, all the Tories who are in power. And there were lots of people were quite upset and angry about their rights being taken away. And should it be that, people couldn't exercise their right to go out and walk their dogs when they want or how they wanted, or, have parties down at the beach with their friends. There was a whole bunch of stuff that went on, which the government reacted to days following, obviously. But I don't think there was ever any clear cut. Perhaps you could write to me if you disagree and you think England did have a very distinct way. But my friends that live in London and live actually all over the UK indicated to me they just didn't know what was going on, and they really wanted to know what was happening in Italy. Hence, they were watching my updates and seeing what was happening. Well, we are now 2 months into the situation. England has always been 2 weeks behind us in the curve in terms of infection and, when the thing really got going in terms of infection rates. And England has now maybe gone over Italy. You can have a look at the update this evening. I haven't had a chance yet today because I've had other things to do, some interviews and stuff to do. But I would say that England is well over the 30,000 mark in data. That's a lot of people to lose. And of course, quite a lot of those are doctors and NHS people, which is really the shocking thing. I mean, if we can't control it in terms of losing our critical doctors and specialist nurses, well, let's even say, Boris Johnson himself was in ITU. So it just got out of hand quite quickly, and people were really afraid and they were scared. People were writing to me and saying, do you think this is going to go the way that things have gone in Italy and Bergamo and other, regions? And we just didn't really actually know what was happening. We just hoped that people had overestimated stuff, and every day I stopped about 2 weeks and I stopped getting the daily report and death toll, and in fact, because I just found it too stressful, too upsetting. Plus, I was dealing with my own issues of having got the virus and recovering from it in those days, which was now about 6 weeks ago. So I'm much better now. I'm healthy, hale and hearty, and positive and happy. I was always trying to be positive, but now obviously I'm feeling a million times better. But in terms of that, friends were asking me, to have chats, and so to update them. And I was, doing my own chats with people and receiving and absorbing their emotional stuff and vice versa. They were listening to me about my needs. And I found that listening to updates on media on the news and also on print media as to what had happened in terms of the death rate just became overwhelming. And so I stopped doing it. And that went much better. Obviously, it filtered down to you via the news, because comparisons between Italy and the other European countries, comparisons between the US once things kicked off there, comparisons with Italy with the US, comparisons. It was just comparison city, comparison after comparison. Now, it's pretty difficult to compare the US. Just enjoying a cup of tea while I chat to you. It's pretty difficult to compare the US, which is, 200 and some change million, nearly 300 million people, to a country like New Zealand, which is one state in the United States equals the population of New Zealand, but people do this. I mean, I refuse to have discussions on Facebook, and I've stopped commenting on any post that people send to me, because at the end of the day, all comparisons are odious, as my dear friends who are wiser than me would say. All comparisons are odious, between people, between situations, between countries, between whatever. But it is the nature of the beast that everybody wanted to compare. What did Germany do? Why can't we be like Switzerland and do that? Why can't we be... Anyway, Italy was unfortunate enough to be a forerunner in terms of the infection in Europe, and so everybody was pointing fingers at Italy. Then the dreadful photos came out that made everybody sit up and take notice of the army trucks coming in to try and move the coffins in the Bergamo region, which is just north of Milan and just northeast of me, about 80 kilometers. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I was in the heart of the epicenter. I still am in the heart of the epicenter. But somehow, once this caught fire in UK and the cases started to happen in UK, it became obvious that they would be reporting on their own stuff, and they stopped making all these documentaries that they were making about Italy and how terrible Italy was and how horrendous it was. They went into hospitals, they put on hazmat suits, and we got all of that. And it was very sensationalistic, I think, in some ways, because this was a view, a little window to the world of what was happening in Italy, of what was, the horror, the sheer horror of going into this very equipped First World hospital where people were lined up in the corridors, and the ICU had been completely swamped, and they were turning wards into emergency wards, and then in some cases outside a marquee into a ward, and so it went. And this was the first view many people got before it took off in New York, obviously in the States. And then, of course, they had their own reporting to worry about, and the daily thing of Trump being with his 4 advisors and giving us a daily update. And so that in some way, although Italy had a daily update, it wasn't quite the same as they do in the States, where they have, all the top, the prime minister in England's case, and the president in America and in Italy, talking about what was happening, a daily update. So we suddenly had in our living rooms every day via media a direct live update from Trump and one from Boris, and we could make our comparisons. We had the Angela Merkel from Germany giving her 2 cents worth and her update. It really was quite astounding in terms of media. I mean, you couldn't turn on any news, whether it was UK news, the BBC, CNN, ABC, whatever channel you follow, it was just coronavirus 24/7. And well, it still is to some degree, but Italy has scaled back just slightly once that curve flattened. But it has only just flattened, and we still have way too many deaths every day. I couldn't tell you what it is today. If you asked me yesterday and the day before, I could tell you, but today I don't know. I hope it has come well under the 600 mark, because that was our target for us to go into this kind of relaxed lockdown. But going back to what we're discussing, the government is now threatening that we will go back into extreme lockdown again, where none of us could do anything other than go out in an emergency situation if people do not respect social distancing. So that's where we're at here in Italy today as we speak. I'm just looking and seeing who's online and who's chatting. Say hi if you're there. Just tell me where you're from, and you can leave a little message in the message box. So that's where we're at in Italy today. We've come into this less dramatic lockdown where we can do certain things. But as I say, the government is monitoring it very carefully, and we have already had the president make a statement that we will go back into more stringent lockdown again if the social distancing rules are not obeyed. But anyway, so all of these articles came out today on Facebook, on print media, about people going out in Milan, enjoying the Niviglia, going out to all the beautiful areas, Corso Como, which is the new area of Milan, where there's all these lovely bars and aperitivo and restaurants. And it is a lovely place where people would go after work to have a drink, to socialize, to meet people, to get together, to do socializing. So in this era of social distancing, of course, gathering together in a restaurant, gathering together to have an aperitivo in the evening in Italy, which is a tradition that we've been following for 300 years, well, probably 3,000 years, probably more like it. It just became completely something that was anathema, couldn't be done, shouldn't be done, was absolutely awful. And then suddenly what happened was we were all in it, and we are still in it. But now, of course, people are going out. So that's what happened this last week. And as we speak, it's Friday evening. So right now, people are going out for aperitivi in the different areas of Milan, and not only in Rome and everywhere, to have drinks, to socialize, and to get together. It's quite difficult to chat if your friend is 2 meters away from you. What do you think about that? How do you imagine that we're going to continue with this? And how will it be that we will, how long will we have to live this life? I'm sure that's a question that you've asked yourself. I've certainly asked myself that question. How long will we have to live this life where we can't make physical contact with each other? I mean, how has it been? My thinking has always been, how has it been for lovers who meet clandestinely, I don't know, once a week or however often they meet? I don't have a clandestine lover, so this is not something that concerns me greatly. Just putting this in a better angle so you could probably see better. So, yeah, how's it been for people who are concerned that they can't meet, can't get together? I have a new couple of friends who's are partners, and they're in 2 different European cities. One's in Amsterdam, the other one's in Milan, and they're going out of their minds. They don't know when they're ever going to be able to be together again because they live so far apart, and they couldn't travel to each other. So they were making plans how they could hire a car, because there were no flights, hire a car and travel across Europe. I can only imagine how complicated that would be because, as you know, we were not allowed to travel between countries. But anyway, they did their best attempt to ask how they could do that, how they could achieve that. I've also been asked this week how to get from Italy to UK. It's quite easy, actually. In normal times, you get on an overnight train from Milan. It's rather lovely. I've done it once to go to Paris to visit my daughter. You are overnight, you can either sit in a seat or get yourself a cubicle for 1 person or 2 people, whichever you prefer, or even 4 if you want to share, and you pay accordingly, and then you arrive in Paris the next morning. So that's all great. And then once you're in Paris and you've had a snack or whatever, you can get the Eurostar to UK. So in normal times, it's a 2-day, maybe extreme if you're going to take a break, 3-day trip. But suddenly now it's like going to the moon. It's like planning a whole excursion to get across Europe. So that's pretty shocking. So give me a like, hit the like button if you can find it, if you're online now or you'd like to ask a question. So just so that I can see who's online and whether you're hearing me loud and clear, and also what you'd like to discuss. So we're talking about what has happened in the different countries, specifically UK and Italy, about following this lockdown. And as we've come out of it now in Italy to some degree, how is that going to, is it sustainable? Can we now get to the point where we can go back slowly but surely into our lives, where schools start to open after the September September, the first term starts in Europe. Will that happen? Let me know what's happening where you are. South Africa's been in lockdown for some time. They had quite an early lockdown before they had many cases, and winemakers were really going out of their minds, writing to me and saying, we can't export our wine, we can't sell wine because they made a complete block on alcohol. So that was really quite dramatic, in that you could not, and I think that is still the case. They have just this week eased up because there was some lobbies that went to government to say, is it possible that we can't export wine into Europe? We understand that we can't sell alcohol locally because you've put a ban on that, as the South African government did, put a ban on it to export wine anywhere. And that was having a very detrimental effect. People were saying to me, yeah, but they're winemakers. Some of them are very rich. What do they care? We're worried about the small people, the normal people like you and I, who can't afford to go to hospital or can't afford to buy their groceries or don't know how they're going to work, don't know how they're going to pay their rent. But at the end of the day, winemakers run businesses and they are employers. And so they have staff. And if they are not able to have their normal crew to work in the winery or bring in the harvest or whatever, those people are not being paid, which means that those people's families don't have food to eat. So it's a knock-on effect. Here in Italy, we never had this alcohol ban. You can buy alcohol in any supermarket, anywhere you like. And obviously, the specific wine shops and restaurants have been closed in the last 2 months, but you could always go into the supermarket and buy the wine you wanted. And while you were doing your supermarket shopping, because we've always been able to do that, obviously. And as I might have mentioned in this video, and certainly in other videos before this, there hasn't been any real shortages in Italy. Food is a crucial thing in Italian lives, and I can get whatever I like, and everybody can get more or less whatever they like. There might be a small queue. I've never experienced queues where I live. You can check on my previous video about my experience of going out and doing the shopping, because I shop as little as possible. I don't go out every day. I go out once a week. But wherever you are you going out every day and buying your bread, or which was the traditional way to do one's shopping in Italy, to go out and get some lovely prosciutto and some nice bread, and then to, do the same thing the day after. So suddenly people have had to plan a bit better about when they go out shopping. But I have to say, I've been very proud of the whole Italian way of managing this. I mean, old people have been looked after. People who can't get out for food have been given food. As I mentioned today, my comune, they very sweetly dropped off some stuff for me this week and gave me a handmade mask, which is so beautiful, out of cloth with roses on it, because they know I love roses. And so I'll be wearing that in my next video. I didn't want to put it on today, but I could show you that. Here in Italy, I have to say, it's been managed incredibly well. Perhaps we were fortunate and unfortunate in one way, in that we were the first country in Europe to really have a huge impact so early. And a lot of countries learned from that example. But one of the things we're debating today is, did England take this seriously enough? Did UK take this seriously enough in terms of making a rule for everybody to obey, as they did in Italy? So we were not allowed out of our homes without a written permission, always with a mask, always with gloves, to go supermarket shopping. These were the rules, and if they were disobeyed, there were fines. Theoretically, England started on that road, and then, because there weren't enough masks to go around, said people didn't need to wear masks. So that started a whole debate. But now we are coming out of lockdown. England's relaxed a little bit, even though their death rate is is huge. It's probably the greatest in Europe right now. I haven't looked today, as I mentioned earlier, but perhaps you could leave me a message and let me know if you do know what the death rate today was in England, if you watch the news on Sky News or whatever. I haven't had a chance yet. But certainly here in Italy, there's a little bit of a sigh of relief. I've noticed here, if I look out from my studio, there's more people going about, there's more cars on the road. There's just generally more flow of people. It's been completely silent for 2 months. I could literally hear a pin drop most evenings, and the owls have come back. I have a big forest near my house that way, and this way a huge villa that has an enormous garden of 4 acres. So there's a lot of bird life. The cuckoo this week has been driving me insane. He's looking for a wife, as he does every year, but very insistent. So I've had cuckoo, the cuckoo call all day, just about drove me cuckoo. Yeah, so, but today, day before and the day before that, I've noticed more action, more people going about, more cars on the streets. It's just been a lot more flow of people from, what I've been talking about in the past weeks. So we're now in this relaxed lockdown in terms of that we're not allowed to travel between provinces. Tourism is still shut down in Italy. There's no flights, and people are asking on the forums that I helped to write content for that. Could they come? When can they come? When will tourism come back to normal? When will people be able to go to Venice and all these beautiful destinations Italy has, since tourism is such a major earner in Italy? When is that all going to happen? How is that going to be? These are the questions people are asking. And yeah, nobody knows. But I think what is for sure, and maybe you guys know more than me in terms of what you've been told by your local embassy or the people who give you information on travel, is that before 2021, it's unlikely that Italy will come out of this ban on tourism, which will be very dramatic for Italy because, as I just said, and continue to say, Italy is hugely reliant on tourism. So if that is the case, there's going to be a lot of businesses closing down. There have been already. Italy put into place this blanket payment that they gave everybody who was a taxpayer, registered taxpayer, that they sent out €600 that you had to request, and then I think that will be for 1 more month. But after that, I think that I don't know what their plans are, what they're expecting. I think they're expecting most people to slot back into their lives, and maybe slowly but surely, as the factories come back and different sectors of the economy come back, people will have money, people will be able to run their businesses. But it's just been very dramatic for small businesses, a lot of whom have gone bust. So it's not that much fun. Yeah, and I mean, England has had its situation where they're paying out money to keep small business going, and in some cases, huge businesses like Virgin and Victoria Beckham who are asking for money. I don't know what you guys feel about that, but it's caused a lot of anger that these huge companies are asking for government aid when the small man on the street who's like a 2-man plumbing business or 2-man electrical business or whatever, or somebody who makes artisanal cakes and pastries and supplies, restaurants, these kind of people are on their knees. They just cannot survive because they were not able to deliver their goods. I mean, restaurants have taken an absolute knock across the world. I feel so sorry for the people who, personal friends of mine who run restaurants. It's just been horrendous, and all the chefs who've been laid off, and all the wait staff and serving staff who've been laid off. It has had ramifications in so many sectors, and we're not done with counting the damage. I think we haven't even begun to analyze the damage yet. It is enormous. but we have to find a way to be positive, as I always say in these updates, that we have to find a way to have hope to go forward and to know what we can personally do in our own lives, in terms of occupying ourselves, looking after ourselves, keeping our routines good, looking for work if we work online or we work as a self-employed person. What are we doing to keep our own income stream going? What are we doing? What can we do? Can we just go and suddenly write content on LinkedIn to attract more people to our businesses? It's just not easy, but there are practical ways to do this. And I'm looking forward to your comments and questions about that. So, yeah, it's been tough and it continues to be tough. And of course, when New York had its absolute crisis, suddenly a lot of the focus and the heat came off Italy, because Italy wasn't the worst place in the world, because they are always uninformed people who said, oh, Italy was like that because of this and their social structure, and Italy doesn't manage things properly. There was a whole bunch of nonsense going around. Anyway, then of course it hit New York, and New York just exploded with the virus, and they are still reeling from that, and they're not out of it yet. But there are various sites within the US that have opened their doors to business again, and to in some way take out. The restaurant industry has been sustained by takeout for those that can. But it's tough, and it really is tough. But I like to believe that people, certainly I speak for myself and many of the people who I'm close to on a daily basis, who I talk to. We are fighters, and we're not going to give up and roll over. Yes, it's been horrendous, this pandemic, although some people, believe it or not, are still denying it. Some people are still denying that it ever was a pandemic. Some people are denying that it ever should have been taken so seriously. It's just been horrendous. How many people have, been split because their friends said one thing and they said another. And sorry, I just had a tickle on my eye of my hair, which is so long. Yeah, so it's been pretty, I think within families even, there have been two opinions where people have said, this is just ridiculous. I'm angry. I can't run my business. You people aren't listening. It's fine for you because you guys can do what you want, but I can't. So it hasn't been easy in any way, shape, or form. And I think that it's going to stay that way for some months. And we don't know when we're going to come back to normal. I have no idea. I don't know when we're going to come back to normal. One of the questions that came to me today via my Instagram is, can you get a flight right now into Italy? This person has messaged me. Can I get a flight right now into Italy? And if so, where and how will it be? So, okay, let me try and answer that. I'm not a travel agent, and I certainly don't have any direct line to the Pope or to the powers that be in Italy. But as I say, I do have a big Italian and expat forum in Italy to know what's going on in terms of this. So as it stands now, if you were a returning resident, which means that, let's say you had a house in Italy or you were renting in Italy and you had to rush back to wherever to visit family or to do business, whatever, and you couldn't get back, you were able to be repatriated. And before today, in the past weeks, you would have had to have a 14-day quarantine, but you could officially, with permission, meaning you'd have to write a declaration that you were doing that, could come back to, sorry, okay. People are just sending me messages here and I'm trying to update them. So, yeah, As in terms of coming in as a tourist to Italy right now, no, you can't. You can't get a flight into Italy as a tourist because you wouldn't have a motivation, and we're still under the rule of you need a motivation and a good reason to do it. So you could be expatriated and returning resident, yes, you could do it. And the same with Sicily, obviously, is part of Italy, and Sardinia and all the other islands that Italy has. You could come back and then stay put. You couldn't just run around. You certainly couldn't get a flight, as many have tried, out of Italy for some weeks to go to Amsterdam or to go elsewhere in Europe or to go to UK without having a reason from the Italian side. But UK seems to have not monitored this very well in terms of arriving in the UK side. People who did that just literally got off the plane in the beginning, were never asked any questions, never had their temperature taken, and that's how that worked. But in terms of tourism right now in Italy, which is the question that was asked of me, you cannot get a flight into Italy for tourism reasons. When will they open that? Nobody knows. Everybody's discussing the fact that it could happen within a month, but I don't know the answer. And if you do know more than me and you have some kind of hotline to somebody, please send me a message down there. You can like this, you can give me a like, and you can leave a message. You'll see there's a little box running on the side where you can write where you're from, and you can let me know if you know something more about tourism, whether you can get a flight into Italy right now. So so then there's the other discussion of, can somebody who's living in Italy who needs to meet up with their family out of Italy, can they do that? Well, no, because that is travel, and whilst it may not be categorized as tourism, it would be jolly difficult. And somebody discussed with me whether they could hire a car and drive up through Europe to Amsterdam to be reunited with their partner because they hadn't seen each other some months and they were going out of their minds. Well, no, you can't, because even if Italy were to release you and you could drive through Switzerland, once you get to the other European Schengen countries, they're going to have to pass you through their territory, and they're going to want to know where you're going and why you're wandering around. So theoretically, it sounded like it could be done in a hire car, but it's just, I mean, apart from being hugely complicated and having to have permission in all these countries to move around, why would you put yourself at risk to that degree? So the answer to that question is no. Another question that's come up is, will the Italian government continue to assist business? Yeah. So, yeah, there's another difficult question to answer. This is from somebody in UK who's interested because they had interests in Italy. They have dual citizenship, which is quite a common situation. People have dual citizenship. The answer to that question is, right now, Italy has made various promises, declarations, whatever you call it, to sustain business. They have something called Cassa Integrazione, which means that you could ostensibly be what we in English would call retrenched. You would be retrenched and you'd get your back pay, your leave pay, or whatever. And there's so many people to cover on this. There's millions and millions of people in this situation. The Italian state aid, in terms of covering like UK has the dole. In Italy, if you've worked for 11 months in the previous year in which you're asking for help, they give you a portion of your salary. And I think it's 80%. But you have to have worked and paid tax for 11 months before that. So if you haven't been working and you've just been sitting at home, or you just couldn't find a job, no, you don't get that Social Security payment. But they made a blanket statement under these terrible situations and these circumstances in which we live now, that they would give every tax-paying person €600 as a one-time payment, and then it would be ongoing. Theoretically, the month following it should have been 800. Quite a few people that I know have got the 600 already, and it was paid in in March, sorry. They applied in March, and it was paid in April. And so theoretically now they're up for the 800 that should be coming to them. I don't know anyone who's received the second payment. If you happen to be watching and you know someone who has, let me know, because that's useful to know. I have quite a few people asking me what the deal is on that. But as these are one-time payments, these are not monthly amount as the UK has done, which has cost the government an enormous amount of money to pay out people these fees on an ongoing basis. But England has always had its traditional dole society where people are unemployed or people who lose their jobs have some kind of recourse to public funds, and of course also has the NHS where medical treatment is free. In Italy, when we go, I've covered this in previous videos, but I'll cover it again. If we go to the hospital for medical treatment, or we go to our GP, which we have a registered GP that we go to and we see, that is covered by the state. We don't pay for that visit to our GP. And if we go to pronto soccorso is the emergency room, and we have treatment, generally that is covered. That is covered. But if it is not an emergency situation and we've just turned up there, it's coded according to red, orange, green, or whatever. So you could sit there for a week, literally. I'm exaggerating. You could sit there for 72 hours if they were really, really busy. And yeah, and you had to just stand in the queue. But we don't pay for that. And we obviously pay a surplus on our medicine if it's on a script from our doctor, we pay a surplus fee at the chemist. If we have x-rays, examinations, all kinds of procedures, sort of day clinic procedures that we go to the hospital for, like an x-ray, I don't know, examination, an ECG for the heart. We have two ways to do this. We can sit around waiting from the state point of view and then just pay a very small ticket, or we can pay a way for it to be done and to jump the queue. So you can have it done faster as a sort of private kind of patient, even though it's a state hospital, and then you can pay to either have a visit with a specialist who you can then choose, because normally you can't choose your specialist. You get who's ever on duty and who's ever on call when you come into the hospital for your heart visit, whatever. And so, in terms of having a mammogram or whatever, that's obviously you're allowed one of those a year or two of those a year, and screening in that way. But anything extra to that, we pay a ticket, which is an extra bit that we pay in to cover the examination or whatever we're doing. So there's that. But I would have to say, in all my years of living in Italy, I've been quite impressed with what is covered, and I've never really been found wanting in terms of, there have been times when I obviously had to wait a long time to be covered by the state on something, but I have to wait my turn with everyone else. There's 60 plus million people waiting to have their treatment. So that's understandable. Yeah, so that's how that works. And during this corona situation, I mean, the people whose lives have been saved that I've heard about, friends of mine and people I know, their families who've been treated for corona have been covered entirely, and it's been amazing treatment. So I would say that Italy does very well on that front. And we have a health card, which is, it's like a biometric card. It has all our details stored in there with our tax number and all our registration numbers. So if you went to a public official in a tax department or a health official, they can put that health card into the machine, into the computer, and it calls up all your stuff. So you are able to be traced. I mean, this kind of medical ID and ID in general, which in Italy has always been the case because residence in Italy is monitored carefully in terms of your health card, where are you resident, which municipality is responsible for you in terms of your treatment, where are you resident. You can't just move around and say, well, I'm not resident anywhere. UK has always had a huge reaction to having any kind of ID card or any kind of ID. Obviously, if you go to the NHS, you have your tax number. So, I mean, they know who you are, but there's no card. So I have a health card. Let me see if I can pull it out. For my region, which would be Lombardia, and that's what mine looks like. It's all, mine's the EU, so because we're part of the EU. Let me just cover up the crucial things because I don't want anyone to steal my identity, obviously. Yeah, so that's what it looks like. It says Lombardia on it, and it's the health card. And so that's put out by the EU, and it has the Lombardia badge on it. And so on the back, it has a barcode. And that's what you would use in a hospital or going to your GP if you needed special services. I've had the same GP for over a decade. I've always had the same GP. I don't pay when I see him. I can either make an appointment or I can go on a Tuesday. There's always one day where you can just wait. And if I would be feeling bad and had flu, whatever, I could go and sit and wait my turn on a Tuesday, and I will be seen. Sometimes there's more people than others and you wait a really long time, but generally you always get seen. So I would say that Italy's healthcare, which has been criticized by some people, is pretty good. I think it's really first world, and I have had no complaints whatsoever from certainly my friends and the people I know in Italy, which is a lot of people. Yeah, it works pretty well. So there's that. So in UK, they have always argued they do not want an ID card. They don't want to be a police state. They don't want to be monitored. They like their freedom to come and go. They don't need to register. The question comes up for Italians, and I know because I talk to Italians every day. I speak fluent Italian. I've been living here for a long time. I live my life in Italian. I don't speak English to everybody, obviously. It is my home language, but I speak Italian a greater part of the day. Their question is, in terms of UK, is how does the postman know how to find you? Because in Italy, you have your name, on your buzzer on your door and the number, and the postman won't just randomly put a letter that's addressed to that number in if your name doesn't come up. So yeah, a lot of the English don't really like that public way of having to write the name on the door for whatever reason. And they don't carry ID books, and they don't feel they need to carry ID books. Whereas in Italy, we have an electronic ID card. It was a book, and those who we wait for that to expire, and then we upgrade to the card. So that's been instituted in the last few years. I still have a book because I had just renewed it for 10 years, a new one. So I'll wait to get my new card. And, you can be asked for that on a train by any policeman can ask you at any time, where is your carta d'identità? And you have to show it. I mean, it's just part of the deal. And I don't have an issue with that. I think it's not if it helps my security, that's fine. I'm not doing anything I need to worry about. So my carta d'identità can be shown in the bank to clear a check. It can be used for a myriad of reasons. And certainly if you had any kind of legal thing, the first thing they're going to ask you is, where's your carta d'identità? You can't go to court in Italy without presenting your carta d'identità. So, yeah, I think that's how that is. For those who argue in England that you could show your passport, I mean, most people don't troops around with their passport in their back pocket, and if they do, it's at a risk of getting lost. So yeah, I don't know how England's going to continue without having some form of ID, especially in light of all the stuff that's gone on with Brexit and all the new immigrants and all of that discussion about, illegal people living in these territories, Italy has certainly played a huge role in helping, refugees coming across the water simply because of its geographical situation. And it was stuck when the EU, a lot of them closed their doors halfway through the refugee crisis. And Italy already had these people because geographically they arrived on a boat and, they arrived from Africa, North Africa, to Italy. That's the first port of call, Lampedusa normally. And the EU really didn't play fair in terms of taking refugees, except for that initial Syrian crisis where I think Germany took 1 million, I don't know who else. A lot of the refugees who do come, financial refugees who are mostly male, want to get to the UK precisely because England doesn't have this identification system, and there is a dole. In Italy, there isn't a dole. As I mentioned before, if you've worked 11 months in the previous year, you can get a portion of your salary. You have to register it for whatever. But there is just not a willy-nilly way to come and live off the state in Italy. And so generally it's used as a migratory route to go to UK, which is apparently the big promised land in terms of, many refugees. So there we are. So we covered a lot of stuff today. So I answered 2 questions, and maybe I have time for one last one before we say goodbye. This is more just a little love message than a question. Someone saying, well done, and our hearts are with you in Italy, and thank you for the updates. Thank you very much, John. That's kind of you. Let me just do one more question. Okay. So here's a question. She writes, do you think the UK will be able to continue as it is now, or will they have to make other lockdown measures? So I think what's meant by this question is the UK going to be able to continue to loosen up as we have in Italy this week and allow people to do more stuff, or are people going to take advantage and go to the beach and flock together? And what will be the consequence of that? I don't know. I mean, I hope that most people will consider that, social distancing in some way is not just about us, it's about the knock-on effect for other people and how that'll work. So I hope that people, really consider how it is for others if we don't play our part. But I really don't know. What do you guys think? I've been really impressed in Italy of how helpful people have been, and how the Italian public, which is often maligned for its way of not following rules, has really followed the rules, and how that's worked, apart from the young people who flocked to Milan this weekend and will continue to. You can't blame them. They're desperate to get out. It's like, they just want to get out. It's called the Berlin Wall syndrome. They're out and they're not going back in, and it's going to be difficult to put them back in the cage. It's a bit like when you take your cat, if you've ever taken a cat to the vet, once you've got the cat out of the box, it's quite difficult to put him back in. It's like, it ain't going to happen. So I don't know if people are going to want to go back in. So anyway, that's 3 questions we've covered. I hope we've covered something that's been interesting for you today. If you are not able to be with us while we're live now, this will be published and it will be like a normal vlog, and you can leave your comments, your likes, your messages. Please give me a like. I really do like to know that, you're enjoying my updates. And if you want to subscribe, please do the red buttons on the right, and then you'll get a notification once I upload a new video, and it might be in your interest to watch it, and you can pick and choose which ones you want to watch. And I really have enjoyed having this chat with you again, as we have in the past weeks. So look forward to it. Thank you for all your messages, and thank you for your care. And since I've just come back to blogging, I really do hope that you're going to stick with and follow along as we do this journey together. So I'm going to sign out now so that I don't go over my time. We've got a couple of seconds. So sending you love from Italy. Take care. See you again. Bye. Ciao. Ciao.